All right, and welcome. This is David Fidua, Coach David Fidua on Invention Licensing. I just wanted to do a live Q&A for those that are out there wanting to get their products licensed, but not necessarily being able to get their questions answered. So I wanted to help out anybody and everybody I could on getting whatever it was answered that they wanted. And so as people are kind of filing in here, I'll wait a little bit to get any questions answered. As they're kind of coming across. All right. I'm streaming across multiple platforms right now. Hey, Sanker. Yeah, if you have any questions, type them in the box. But I did get a question in, and I'm on multiple platforms, so if you don't see the questions coming in that I'm answering, it's because they're on a different platform. So, but do type in your questions. I'll get them right here on my chat box and be able to answer anything you have. And the first question I got in is, I'm not getting into my licensee. What am I doing wrong? And that can be a lot of things. And you know, there's very little you need to do to get it right, which is a lot of the times inventors are afraid to call because they don't know if they're going to say something wrong, and that's where the problem can be is if you feel like you're going to say something wrong, so you hesitate and you don't call, and then you feel like you've got to like just email the company's customer service. And I will say it works sometimes, but not all the time. And so you've got to actually call. I love calling. I hated calling to get started. I got to the point where it was kind of funny. I was getting started in the business, learning how to call people, and I like built up the moment of like, all right, I got to call this one person. I got to do it. I got to make the call. And so I worked my butt off to like get focused in, and I dialed, and then when it rang, I was like, oh my God, my nerves are shooting through my face. And as soon as somebody picked up and I heard somebody's voice, I actually hung up on them. And I was just like, I don't know. I mean, it was just too nerve-wracking for me when I got started. And so then, but over time I got over it, right? I took the time to get my nerves out, and I started calling companies with comfort. And so to kind of like encapsulate all this, connecting with another human being is the way to get in and get them to actually look at your product. You can send cold emails until you're blue in the face and not get a response. Make one phone call, make one connection, and pitch to a company. So I always recommend calling in, making a connection, asking if it's okay to send an email. And what I've found is just sending those blind emails, it's nobody necessarily answers them, because you, me, everybody, when we get emails from random strangers that we don't necessarily know exactly what it is, we don't answer them. You know, they go right in the spam bin or right in the trash bin a lot of the time. But if you know that you just talked to Inventor Dave and he said he's going to email you, and then you get an email 2 minutes later from Inventor Dave, you open it. And so that's the way to get in. You know, it doesn't necessarily matter, oh, I emailed 50 or 100 companies, but how many people actually looked at your email, reviewed it, and responded to your inquiry? And that's what's most important. So I do always recommend to people to make a personal connection, and then from there, see if you can pitch. Once they okay to pitch, get the email right in their inbox so they click on it and open up your awesome marketing material that you made. We had a message from Sanker. How long should one wait before filing a PPA once interest has been generated, sharing non-confidential information? So there's different ways you can do it. And if you ask an attorney, it's file early, file often, basically file whenever there's a change. But in business sense, it's not always the right thing to do, because then you're spending all your time and money filing PPAs and patents and whatnot, and you're not focusing on where money is made, which is pitching and getting your product in front of people that can license it and make it a real thing. And so I I always start out and I file a provisional patent application after I've done the first 2 steps, which is develop your list of companies, do your research, and then the other step is build your marketing material. Once you've done that, that's when I usually file my intellectual property, right before I start calling companies. And so that's a lot of times going to be your first filing. Once you're in, you're talking to companies and you're getting correspondence coming back and forth. They're talking about it and discussing it. And sometimes it evolves, right? Changes happen. And then there are points when you can file another provisional patent application. And so I always say the first one, you don't file right away. It's not the very first step, because sometimes it can take you 3 to 6 months to do the other steps to get ready for pitching, and you're losing that 12-month window. And so you want to prepare to call and pitch. And once you're there, then file your PPA so that you've got the full 12 months of pitching as an opportunity to get in, talk to, and make deals with companies. So Sankar, I hope that answers your question. Another question I got in. Can the receipt of bill from USPTO hold up as a date of patent pending? Typically, this is a follow-up question. He said, can receipt of bill from USPTO hold up as a date of filing for patent pending? You want to get that confirmation. A lot of time confirmation is via email if you filed electronically. It can be, if you filed via paper file, then they do mail that back to you. But you usually want to wait until you get that confirmation. I'm pitching in categories where it's not as competitive for intellectual property. And so a lot of times I'll file. I won't necessarily wait until I get the confirmation via mail, but I'll just get pitching and get into companies and start the conversations. So keep those questions rolling. Paul, I got a question from you. Would you pitch to a company that is based in China but has an office in the US? So yes, Paul, to your first question, would you pitch to a company that is based in China but has a US office? So most of the time, all products, or a lot of the products, are getting pitched to US companies and then sent over to China to be made, manufactured, and sent back to the United States or distributed around the world. And so your product usually always makes it to China in some way or another. And so you have to balance your risk, right? If the company has a history of knocking products off, having issues, then yeah, it's definitely a risk. But know that, you pitch to a US-based company, it's going to make it to China anyways, because that's where it's more than likely being manufactured. And so you have to kind of balance that out with understanding who you're dealing with, one. So do your background checks on people that you're pitching with. And then also categorically. Categories are sometimes driven by the fact that some people are, or some industries are more okay with knocking other people off. And so but houseware, it's most of the time pretty safe to be pitching in categories like that to companies, because they'll be bringing the product over to China anyways to be manufactured. So then Paul had a follow-up question on that. Paul, I hope that kind of answers what you're looking for. Would your idea be at risk of being copied in other countries then sold on Amazon? Yes, it is. It always is. But you always have to balance that risk. And out of the getting to be a decade and a half of time that I've been in the business, it doesn't really happen. Like, the knockoffs don't happen like that. What a lot of the times happens is you're pitching to companies, and the reason I say it doesn't happen like inventors think it does, people don't pitch products and then they knock them off. People will pitch products, it goes into it starts getting sold, it goes well, that's when it gets knocked off. It's not when it gets first pitched, because the first pitch, they don't know if it's going to work or not. Even though they might be excited about the benefits that you're pitching, they don't know if it's going to be a success. And if they don't know it's going to be a success, then they're not going to pay the big money to, invest in the product that they don't know if it's going to be a win, and also have a possible lawsuit coming behind it. And so, Paul, the way that I look at it as, when I'm out there pitching and getting into companies, they're not there to steal it. Or they're not there to take my product and run with it. But I do take the precautions, right? I'm filing provisional patent applications. I'm working with companies that I know. And Paul had a follow-up comment. It's the pet industry that he's looking into. The pet industry doesn't necessarily have that. It's not known, at least from my perspective and working in it myself a little bit, and then through students. It's not really known for people stealing products from other inventors or companies. And obviously there's some similarities to successful products, but as an inventor, it doesn't really happen that way. And said, I can't stay, run into a Zoom. Okay, have a good one. We'll be answering questions here. So if you get out of your Zoom, come on back. Another question is, I'm trying to pursue a non-provisional patent because I'm pursuing large companies like Igloo and Yeti right now. When pursuing a non-provisional patent and many elements of the invention are prior art, do you think that impacts the possible awarding of the invention if the utility of those elements is completely new? That's a pretty technical question. And so I guess the way I would approach it, obviously this is stuff that you'd want to talk to an attorney about because this is very technical intellectual property questions. But the thing that I do see in this is that you can get into Yeti and Igloo under a provisional patent application or a PPA. You don't have to be to utility filing. And so you may want to go to the provisional patent route. And one of the reasons that I usually recommend this path is because if let's say you go the route of non-provisional, you pay 10 grand for an attorney to write it up and get it filed, filing fees, attorney's fees, all that, and you're 10 grand in. You pitch to the companies, you get in, you get interest. It's awesome, but they want to make changes. And those changes, let's say, are outside of the scope of your non-provisional patent filing. Oops. Now you've got to file another non-provisional patent application that might not, or that would align, but you already have a lost cause of that $10,000. So I've been told they don't look at PPAs. Well, you don't want them to look at your PPA. You want them to look at your, it might be patent pending products. That may be true. I remember when I talked to Igloo back and Yeti some time ago, I'm talking like 10 years ago, Igloo did have a clause that said they only looked at patented products. But here's what I did. I called them up and I asked an individual within the company, would you be interested in looking at my product? They said, yeah. And I just sent it right over. And mind you, that was 10 years ago. Things may have changed, but their company policy back then was a utility patent. But you just have to call somebody up and have a conversation, and they may be open to having or looking at your product before it's got a utility patent on it. So yes, patent pending. Okay, that's what I figured. And so try to get out there, try to get in there and call them up and pitch to an individual. But yeah, sometimes they do push back and want you to have a utility filing. And a lot of the times when companies want you to have a utility filing, sometimes they're a year or two behind on the real innovation that happens in a marketplace. So I wouldn't necessarily think that they're that or as interested in having a licensing deal with an inventor if they just want to have, granted patent type products, because they know that those are 3 to 5 years behind the market. So I hope that helps. I hope that can point you in the right direction. Lorena, thank you for questioning in. I'm loving it. They're starting to fly in. I appreciate it. You guys type in any questions you have. I'll be here for a little bit answering questions. Do you believe it's worth it to master a functional prototype prior to offering the product for licensing? No way. If you can have a digital 3D simulation in hand. Yep. So the way that I look at it is we are presenting benefits when we get started. And that's one of the most important things. We need to know if there's benefits, or the benefits are what companies want to license. And it's so very important because we can spend, I've talked to inventors that are like 6 years into their garage perfecting this prototype, finally get them to go pitch it. And when they pitch it, the company comes back with the issues. And it's like, if I would have just figured that out right from the beginning, then I could have just focused on those issues, fixed them, and been in front of the company with a product that is licensable. And so the way I do it is I look at my personal skill set, and every product that you pursue, you have to reflect upon yourself and your own personal skill set. Are you able to build a prototype? Are you able to reach out to a designer to create a 3D rendering? There's different ways that you need to be able to present it, but you need to be able to present it so that people understand the value that you are giving to the company. And so, or sorry, to the end customer. And so when you're in that ideation to bring to market phase where you're deciding on which projects to do, look at them and decide on things that are in your wheelhouse. I don't usually do things with Bluetooth. I don't usually do things with very technologically advanced things that are outside of my wheelhouse. I do simple things. Simple, like, I've got injection molded plastic beer pitcher, no electronics. And so that's one of the ways that I make it so that when I pitch to companies, they can get my products right away because nothing's outside my wheelhouse. But like building that prototype was very, very difficult when I got started. It ended up that I built, and in my mind, it was difficult. What I ended up doing was I took an existing beer pitcher and I used plastic on the inside to reshape the interior geometry to then test it to show a potential licensee. Once I tested it and showed it to a potential licensee, they said, yes, this is a benefit we will pay you 7% for. And that's when I was like, okay, it's worth the $3,000 to build a real prototype because now I've gotten validation that somebody wants to pay me a royalty for my innovation. And so, Lorena, I wouldn't necessarily master the prototype. I would get something that you can show the benefits. And so once you can show the benefits, you can get them excited. Once you can get them excited, they might put down an offer, or they might say, well, we can engineer that in-house, or we can build the prototypes. You want them to use their resources to build out your stuff. And so that will help cut down on your cost and help you through the learning curve. Because sometimes, building a prototype might be very technical, take a lot of time and a lot of money to get through, where companies, they do this stuff every day and might be able to whip it out in a day for very little cost. And so if you can't build a simple prototype that you can pitch, go to a 3D simulation or 3D animation to convey your points and benefits. Once you get in and get interest, then they may ask, we need to see a prototype before we license this. And that would be the time to invest your time and energy and get into that professional prototype level or the functional prototype level. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. Rory, not a Q, David, Delvin here. Really enjoy your Tribe's weekly webinars. Keep up the grind. Of course. Keep on closing deals and getting students in deals. Paul asks, love this question. How can you get a company to pay for your patents? I've done it time and time again, and I've done it with my students. It's you have to have the conversation come across in the right way. And the conversation, it's interesting because if you just come to a company and say, here's my product, they say, oh, we like it. And you say, will you guys pay for my patents? They say, no. But if you come across in the right way and you tell the story, because I look at all negotiation is good storytelling. So if your story, they're involved in it, they're emotional with it, and the end result is them licensing it and paying for your patent, then they feel that that's the path that should be taken. And so you just have to tell a good story along with it. And a lot of times I'll use the story of, and don't use this story at the beginning. Use a story when you're in negotiation, you've got a contract and whatnot. So that's something timing of this is very important. But once you get into the process, you can say, I don't need any money up front. I'm not looking to go like buy jet skis and have all this fun money, but I'm wondering if you would be interested in investing, instead of money up front, investing in the intellectual property. And then you just give them a minute, right? You give them that quiet minute of reflection and response. And sometimes they're on top of it right away. like, oh yeah, of course we can do that, because then they look at it as it's an investment in their own future. It's both of your futures together that they're now investing in. Other times they say, we would want you to invest in the intellectual property. Say, okay, great, that's fine. You can't argue that point if that's what they feel. But then you come back and say, well, can we do it as an advance on royalties? So this is money that you would be paying me in the future, but I'm getting it now so that I can invest in the intellectual property. And a lot of times when you set it up with the stack, you have, I call it a retreat close. Basically, you have your big ask, which is them just straight up paying for patents. And then if they say, no, that doesn't work, you have your retreat or your fallback position. Your fallback position is much more reasonable, right? It's money that they would be paying you anyways. So it's coming out of your pocket, not theirs. And it's just upfront. And that's when they usually say yes. But it's great if they say yes to the first one. So either way, you can get them to pay for patents. Sometimes companies want their name on it. If they're paying for it, that's okay. We can take care of real ownership of it in the contracts. So Paul, I hope that answers your question. You can usually get companies to pay for your patents. Sometimes it's categorical where like some clip strip driven companies, they don't invest as much in intellectual property. So them paying for patents is outside of what they do for their own products. So you asking for them to pay for your patent doesn't make any sense because they don't even pay for patents on their own. So know that also is categorical. Right. Thank you. I'm reading, I'm not. Yeah. Tina says, what's your thoughts about guerrilla marketing? How did you deal with after licensing your product? You're wanting to do extra to get it out there faster. So guerrilla marketing tactics can work. They don't always work, but it's something that you got to get it out there and in the right people's hands for guerrilla marketing to work. Guerrilla marketing. I know Tina. She was one of my old students. She licensed a fishing product, very cool product, and the guerrilla marketing for it, and it's getting it in front of the right people to use it. And then if they are using it and like it, they then disseminate it to their community. I've had a unique opportunity to where the company that I licensed one of my products to, Arctic Can, did an amazing job with marketing. I mean, there's no reason for me to get involved with marketing because they were on top of everything. They went as far, and I don't even know if they were involved in this, but they got the product that I licensed to them, the Arctic Can, into Time magazine as Father's Day product of the year that it launched, along with CNET, Chive, Business Insider, a bunch of other magazines and publications. And so they got it in front of those right people, it went in the right places, and it just grew from there. And so Tina, I guess I would start reaching out to magazine editors, see if people want to write articles on it and kind of put it out there, because everybody's always looking for more and unique content, and they would be able to. Okay, you've been doing fishing tournaments, good. One thing I think your product is set to live bait, and I remember talking about this, that it's. So tournaments, I usually only fish with live bait, but at tournament they don't. And so I don't know if necessarily tournament fishermen are going to be able to use that on camera. But doing fishing shows where I've seen a lot of fishing shows where they're on, deep sea charters and they're doing live bait right there. Boom. That would be a great spot to have your product. And so kind of figuring out where in the world or where in the public domain does your product or would your product show up, and that's the guerrilla marketing tactic I would take, is getting it, doing research, seeing where it would be placed. And when I say public domain, I mean TV shows, commercials, how else can it be put out there? Instagram influencers are big. So even, and some of them are crazy, $20 or $25 to post, and they have 400,000 or 500,000 followers, and so it gets your product in front of that many people that quickly. So I'd start looking at Instagram influencers, and Oh, and that's another thing. So even the tournament fishermen, right? They have a big following via their Instagrams and all that, and their social media. So even getting not a use on a tournament, but having them post about it via their social media, so that, because all their followers are usually typically fishermen and they want to see fishing products. And so it's, not the fact that they use live or artificial bait, it doesn't matter. It's they have a community of fishermen that are looking at it. So going to the tournament, making connections, making personal connections with fishermen that have large social media followings, and getting them just to post on it, I think can help with the guerrilla marketing strategies. And thank you for the questions coming in, Tina. I hope that helps. Keep them on coming in. I got another one that's coming in. It's, how do I pick the best product? And this was always so important to me when I got started, because I always looked at the first product, or even just selection of product, as that's how I'm going to win. That's how I'm going to be successful, is if I pick the right product. Oh, Tina, awesome. You said yes, you did. You're reaching out to fishermen to get it posted, and very cool. But sorry, back to how to pick the right products. And my deep down soul was like, if I pick the right product to pitch, then I'll win. And it's not the case. Execution is way bigger than product selection. It does always come back to product selection, but execution is the must. And so when you're getting started, you've got multiple products you're looking at. First thing I look at is category. So category is important because of, the one thing that I kind of I always look at inventors that are successful on multiple levels, meaning they license multiple products, they have an easier time getting products licensed, is they're usually categorical inventors. They invent in one category. Like if Tina was in the fishing category, now that she has one, she can invent more and she can pitch more because she already has connections with all the players in there, and it's very easy and quick. Where if Tina jumps over to houseware or hardware or pet, she's going to have a much more difficult time pitching products because she already has the win in the fishing category. And so I always tell people, when they're picking their first product, go categorical first. If you've got 25 products on a list and 10 of them are in one category and the other ones are in all these different categories, pick categorically. Pick one in that space, because you're going to have a better chance of winning by doing that. And then second thing that we talked about earlier with Lorraine, she was asking a question and we talked about what's in your wheelhouse or your capabilities. And that is important, because you pick categorically, right? So I've got 10 inventions in this space and a bunch of other ones scattered everywhere else. I'm picking one within this category so that I have an easier time licensing in the future. And then if your first product that you want to go with, you've got this sheer excitement about it, but you don't necessarily know or understand how to do the Bluetooth linking in it or the electronical components. So that's a little bit outside your wheelhouse, right? Or if it is or it isn't. But if it's not inside your wheelhouse, it's a little bit more difficult to move through the process. So I'm bad with electronic stuff. And so when a company, or when I have an idea that has electronic components, it gets lower on my list, just because when I get in with that potential licensee, I know that even if we get interest and start moving through the process, I'm going to have to learn a lot more than I am with just a single mold or a single piece injection molded product. So this is a single piece injection molded piece of plastic. And when that's the case, there's no moving parts. There's a lot less complexity to it, even though there's quite the complexity to that product. You want to be able to be in your wheelhouse of understanding, because if I go pitch a Bluetooth or an electronic product and they start asking questions, I will be able to answer them by saying, I don't know, I can get back to you. And then when I have to go do research and I have to figure out how electronic components work and how to build them, and then I can get back to them. Where if it's a simple product, I don't. So pick categorically, then pick simply. And then the rest of it is up to emotion, right? Am I excited about this or not? And emotion plays two roles. If you are too excited about it, that's a bad thing, because then you want to keep it close to your chest. You want to keep it hidden. You want to keep it away from the public eye, especially when you're new and you don't know what you're doing. But if you're just getting started and you have less emotional attachment, but enough to think, hey, this could be real, then you're motivated, but you're not as protective. And that's the space you need to be in as an inventor when you're getting started emotionally, because you can't be super attached to your product and you can't be underwhelmed by your product, because then you don't break through the brick walls of difficulty to get it in the marketplace. So those are kind of the different things that I use to pick products as I move through the process. So I hope that helps. Paul, I see you have another question here. Thank you so much for putting them in. Is guerrilla marketing to get your idea out for license? To see and get your product licensed, or is it to help your licensee that you already have contract with? So Paul, Tina was asking in terms of she already has it licensed and she's looking to go and get it go get more sales for her licensee. And so, but I mean, getting a product license is somewhat guerrilla marketing. I mean, we're out there just one-on-one doing phone calls. We're trying to set up an emotional scenario where companies want things, right? They want to move forward with it. And so that's where, when you're out there pitching, you're calling them, you're emailing them, you're following up, you're getting the product in front of them any way that you know how. And so that's how you're trying to get your product licensed. And then, so I hope that helps. Let's go to the next question here. What can I expect for royalties? That's always a question that I do get, because you want to kind of know, what is the end of the road going to look like? And so royalties vary, but they don't. So royalties are always in kind of this box. And there are outliers, but on averages or higher probability of what it looks like. High volume, low margin, 1% to 3%. You're talking packaging type products. High speed production type products are lower percentages because they work on lower margin. And then the everyday consumer product, you're really ranging from 3% to 7%. And so that runs kind of between, anywhere from $2.99 to like $100, $200 sometimes is where you're going to get between that 3% and 7%. And those are usually based on the wholesale price, or basically the net sale price. So whatever the company sells it out their doors for. So if they sell it through their own website at $20, you get your 6% of that, or you get 6% of the wholesale price if they sell it to, let's say, a Walmart, Target, or Bed Bath & Beyond at $10. So you get different amounts of revenue from different places, but volumes are different. And the last category is, well, there's kind of two last categories, and I lump them together personally because they're both similar percentages. I see them anywhere from like 9 to 17%, and they're usually specialty products where they're low volume, high margin type products, and you can negotiate for higher margins. And also, there's a new emerging category that I'm seeing, and they're more like internet products, where they're selling through the internet. There's a lot more bells and whistles on them, and they have higher margins on them. They're like usually ranging from $50 to $70 or so, and you can get into that 15%. I've seen a couple deals at 17%. So yeah, there's kind of this range in which you work in that you get your royalties off of. So we're just about 30 minutes in, so I was trying to get 30 minutes of Q&A in for everybody to see if I could answer any one of your questions. And so I do hope that you got something out of this. Do give me a thumbs up if you did. And also, I'm doing a webinar on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I put a link in the notes if you wanted to join. Click that link. I'm doing a full hour breaking down the process of getting your product licensed and how to get into companies, and basically a lot of the stuff that I talked about now, but more in succinct format, so you can kind of follow along on this is the step, this is the step, this is the step. So I do hope to see you there. Getting some more Q&A in here. Bev, I'll do this one last one real quick. Hey, Bev, how nice it is to see you. I'm wrestling with the issue of researching IP for the purpose of doing a PPA. Is novel enough versus concerning about infringement on an existing patent? Bev, can you email me? And we'll knock that one out later. That's a little bit more in depth. So, and I was just about to sign off. So yeah, Bev, email me and we'll go from there. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much, and hope to see everybody on the Sunday night at 8 p.m. webinar. Talk to you then.